I guess I should add myself to the stream so that you can see me. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another preview. I'm going to put my glasses on. I cannot see anything, so bear with me. You can see Tyler in his glasses for at least a second here. Okay, we are good to go. All right, welcome to PWTorch's YouTube page. Thank you for watching as always. Today we are previewing the November 9th, 2022 edition of AEW Dynamite. So thank you for joining me here as always. Should be hopefully a bounce back edition of Dynamite. Hello there, Hassan or Hassan. Please let me know if I butchered your name. I apologize. I can barely read, as you know. So thank you for joining as always. So I think tonight will be hopefully a bounce back edition of Dynamite. The one thing, I think there's lots to critique and nitpick hello Tracy, thanks for joining. There's a lot to nitpick in AEW. And Azan, how are you? I was just listening to Wade read your question about Britt Baker on the flagship yesterday. So you're all over the place, at least in my world, Azan. So thank you for joining. So anyway, I think tonight, for all the flaws that AEW's had recently, and I think there's a lot to mention, we've talked about them here. It's not quite groupthink, but I think there are a lot of things that we all would agree on that need to be improved on in AEW. And one thing I think AEW's done for the long tenure of the company is bounce back from really poor, from the AEW Dynamite curve, bounce back from that and have a pretty good solid episode. And I think tonight will be that, because last week's Dynamite and last week's Rampage were skewed from being not very good to kind of confusing on the choices made. Confusing being more the Mike Tyson use on Rampage, which is interesting to say the least. But so I think tonight, as Azan said here, should be a very newsworthy night tonight. And also, I will be joining Wade Keller on the PWTorch AEW Dynamite post show. So please listen afterwards, send an email, call in, whatever it be. Especially, I don't know if anyone that watches regularly has called in. It'd be nice to talk to you for at least a brief period of time. So if you can do that, please do. But enough of the plugs. Let's get into the show. So we got a lot to go on here, and it's going to be an interesting show. Right now, there are 4 matches that are booked. I think we'll probably get a squash match to get to 5. I don't know if there's ever been a Dynamite minus the hour-long draws for the world title that have had 4 matches. So, that there's potential here with the 2 out of 3 falls match. We'll get to that. Don't worry. But I think there'll be a 5th match added for someone to get a squash in, because at least one of these I wouldn't think would be very long, but it might be. But let's start with Eddie Kingston, unless anyone else in the comments wants to start anywhere. I want to start with Eddie Kingston and Ethan Page in let me get my nomenclature right here, because we know AEW loves to. They are in the, I guess, the first round, unless there's another name, of the World Title Eliminator Tournament tonight. And obviously, the field has not been laid out completely. I think we should get the full field. Maybe it has. I don't know. I know there's Dante Martin, there's Eddie Kingston, there's Ethan Page, there's Ricky Starks. Actually, it is filled out because I kind of looked to see where it was going. But anyway, I digress, as you love to hear me ramble without Zach here to rein me in. But it seems to me Ethan Page and Ricky Starks seem to be the 2 headed to be in that pay-per-view final. Yes, and Roosh and Bandito also happening. Thank you, Joel. Joel, thank you for joining. Joel of Fightful.com. So please check out Joel on those platforms as well, everyone watching. But it seems to me that seems to be the trajectory. I don't know if anyone else has any other thoughts on that, if they think of other booking, but that seems to be the way we're going with who's gotten promo times. Ricky Starks in the ring, talking about his ability to be there, and Ethan Page backstage, but they both have been the only 2 to get that TV time. So I think that's the way we're going here tonight, which is a shame. But as Hassan said here, Eddie heel turn coming soon, which, I think the merits of that could be debated. If it gets Eddie on the show on a more regular basis, I'm definitely for that. But, I think him as one of the most pure baby faces in the company is one of the many things that's been dropped in 2022 for obviously stuff happening backstage, right? Do you want to promote people who are getting in fights? I mean, they did with Sammy. So with his spot on the pay-per-view and whatnot. So I guess it depends on the information that I just don't have, right? So there's that, but it feels, like 6 months ago, this would have been an easy Eddie Kingston win against Ethan Page, but it feels like the trajectory is going in a different way there. So, as Eddie going heel, does he go here? Does it happen with, him and Moxley? They've been alluding to that coming up here. So, does he do something to Moxley? Is that do they wrestle again? They did in the pandemic, so it feels like enough time's passed there to rehash that, to give Moxley something to do if he does lose the world title, and give Eddie something important to do. That would be good. Just use of Eddie is always a plus in my mind. So interested to see where they go tonight. But yeah, so we will see where that goes. But I think Page is on the path to beat Kingston and then beat the winner of Rush and Bandito. Bandito coming out of that would make sense. Give Page as a heel, let him hit Ego's edge on Bandito, because I doubt he's going to be able to hit that on Eddie Kingston. If he can, that's going to be an impressive move tonight for him there. So that's where I see that going. Hopefully that flushes things out a bit there, and sets that on trajectory for the first person to lose to Moxley or MJF when we come out of the pay-per-view at Winners Coming, I believe, is where that title match occurs. So that should be good. So let's get to another match. I just put on my notes here all the tag teams, as I smack my mic, all the tag teams fighting. So let's give you the actual match here. It's the Acclaimed and FTR taking on Swerve in Our Glory and the Gun Club, Austin and Colton Gunn. So feels like, obviously what we're doing here is setting up via WWE style, which the Acclaimed in recent weeks have been booked very much like a WWE tag team. And I don't even say that as a slight, because I think, it can work, and where they are, I think it devalues them as their upper echelon as a group by doing it like this. But anyway, having this tag match solidifies all the things that they're doing now to the pay-per-view, and then can set up some breadcrumbs for FTR and the Acclaim to have probably Winners Coming or something around that. That's always treated almost like a pay-per-view. Have the match there. Determines how long, as I said here many times. I don't think FTR are long for AEW. I don't know what anyone else thinks there. But, if they lose they lost the Japan titles. But you lose the AAA and you lose the Ring of Honor titles before, January or whenever their contract's up, that would seem to make sense. So if you want to get that match in there and get the rub to the Acclaimed before they leave at something like Winners Coming, that would make a lot of sense to me. So you can do that there. And then, Raiden coming in hot. I would love a Ricky Starks Eddie Kingston tournament final. I don't think that's where we're going based on where they presented things, but, do you need to protect the firm Ethan Page? I don't think so. That would be my choice, but we'll see where it goes. But on the tag team stuff, Zahn's in here. How long does Keith Lee keep up with this shit with Strickland? So I don't think very long. I think that would be not the result of the match tonight. I think, Lee not siding with Strickland in the pay-per-view, or that being solidified there, would make sense, and have those two feud, because AEW's not really told that story that quickly very much, so that is going to feel relatively fresh when they do it. But this would be like, second strike on Swerve. So we kind of saw the first strike with the video of Swerve, unscissoring the hands of Billy Gunn, and this would be strike two, and the strike three can be something that he does at pay-per-view where Lee stops him for not winning the right way, or joins him, whatever. I think Lee as a babyface makes more sense in that situation, but I'm open to either. Just like Eddie Kingston, the more we can get Keith Lee and Swerve on the show, I think is a net positive. So whatever it takes to get them there. But I think tonight is gonna serve a lot of purposes, and should be a relatively fine match, but just more gimmicks around the the finish, the stuff that happens afterwards, is ultimately going to be more important than the match itself. But it should be pretty good. Just like Sean chiming in here. Thank you for joining, Sean. Tony did wrong by FTR, no doubt. Yeah, I mean, and all this stuff will come out, whether it be a podcast with Conrad Thompson when he has literally every ex-wrestler on his podcast network, but I'm sure there'll be some sort of reasoning behind the total cutting out of the rise of FTR within AEW. And if that's CM Punk related, if they sided with him, as some reports let out, is that the issue? And Tony Khan just didn't want to back anyone that backed CM Punk after that moment, or could they not agree to a contract extension, so therefore you kind of shadow book them poorly, but on their way out. So yeah, and there's lots of stuff there. I think on both sides you'll hear what happened there, and something happened. And usually when there's a falling out, right, it takes two to tango, as Azan has alluded to there. So I'm sure all those details will come out, but we'll see. And I'm curious what they would do in WWE again. I think that'd be a huge get for that company, and Bloodline. So the Usos and the Brawling Brutes and FTR, if they would be called that. I'm curious. This is an AEW preview, but would they be FTR? I mean, I guess that's a branded name, right? But to be the Revival would be kind of odd. But maybe they would. I don't know. So we'll see. But I have obviously in that match, I didn't say. I mean, I have Ethan Page winning. The first one is my guess, and run back DIY versus Revival. Yes. So I thought there's a Ryback in there. Azan and I almost had a heart attack if you were suggesting Ryback to come back. But yeah, I got Ethan Page, and then I got the babyface team winning the tag match. But we could do some WWE stuff and have the heels win some way, and give you a seed of doubt in your mind. So those are two. Well, yeah, we got another. So we got Jamie Hayter taking on Sky Blue, in which should be a squash match, but I think it'll get the typical 8-minute women's match at 9:20, and you'll get the first 2 minutes, then a long commercial break, and you'll see the last 2 minutes of the finish, which is an unfortunate way to book anyone, but that's how AEW books the women's division. With Jamie Hayter getting the win, just to get another win on TV before her title match. That'll be more important again. What happens before, after? Does Hayter and Rebel and Britt Baker beat down Sky Blue at the end for some reason, or is there anything else? So Renza here, Jamie Hayter will try to put over Sky Blue for some reason. Do you mean in losing to her, or just like having a good match and kind of doing the Moxley thing where he beats a Wheeler Yuta, a Lee Moriarty, a Danny Garcia, but gets him over in a loss? Because I think Sky Blue has definitely improved over the last year and a half, however long. She's been elevated from Dark Elevation to Rampage a lot, and some Dynamite stuff. But yeah, I mean, if that's the potential, I could see that. Maybe Hayter is trying to make herself a little bit of that locker room leader. Yeah, so just so everyone sees it too. Yeah, the competitive 15-minute match. Yeah, I mean, if she wants to do that, I mean, that's what. If I'm going to win a match and it's not going to hurt my character a ton, that's what I would. You got to try to do that for everybody, right? If you want to be kind of that kingmaker type performer, I think that gets you more and more, credit backstage and gets you on TV more. And based on having 4 matches booked, that could happen. And I think that would certainly help Jamie Hayter going into her title match to put on a really good performance with someone like Sky Blue. So we will see. I don't know if I think Azan has summed it up fairly well here. Knock off Cora Jade. So I think Cora is probably a better in-ring performer at this moment, but she hasn't got a ton of opportunities either to have a long singles match. So we can see what happens there. But I think Jamie Hayter wins that pretty convincingly. And I don't know what Britt Baker or Rebel are going to be doing this time. So let's transition to that, because we've got a sit-down between Britt Baker and Saraya, which I think Tony Schiavone is part of. Yes, Tony Schiavone is on the graphic. So I assume he'll be the one mediating that meeting. Does that take place in the ring? Is that a pre-taped? I certainly hope it takes place in the ring live in front of the audience and takes up a segment, because the show seems to be needing some segment length. And to make this feel like the important match that it should, I think it should be in the ring and happen there. Not a contract signing per se, but that sort of vibe where you have Saraya coming out with her final doctor. Hopefully, it's not like some gimmick of you bring a wrestler in who's a doctor, or it's a joke on Britt being a doctor, whatever. Or asking Britt, like, hey, you're the final doctor. I have to ask, can I fight? And then punches her, and then they get in a brawl. That seems like the rough draft of how I book that segment. So hopefully someone else can improve upon that initial idea that I just threw out there. But that would be the ideal scenario here, not just some backstage segment where it's literally a minute and each of them talk in different, it's Britt after the second match, and then it's Saraya before the main event. And you get the match booked officially by Tony Khan per the announcers as we're about to watch the main event, or after the main event where they show the graphic, and that's booked for Full Gear. So, but yeah, or yes, as Azan says, Dr. Tom. Which Dr. Tom, though? Tom Lawler or Tom Pritchard? So I don't think Tom Lawler is a doctor, though, so I guess I've answered my own question. Anyway, as you can hear me just dissipate where I lose confidence in my joke there. So thank you for joining me for that one. But that's where I see there. I don't know if anyone else, not a ton of comments on this, which is fine. You don't have to force comments, but that's how I judge things too. It seems people are way more interested in the Jamie Hayter Sky Blue match than they are in this segment. I think that's indicative of how AEW has booked this, the kind of confusion of kind of leading people along of like, can she wrestle, can she not? When does that benefit either the hardcore or the casual audience? I think it doesn't help either, because if you're hardcore, you kind of see through it and you feel like, okay, I know what you're doing here. And if you're casual, it's like, okay, well, I don't really, maybe I remember this person from WWE, but can she wrestle? All that. I just don't think it helps tremendously. Hopefully tonight kind of clears that up, and I can stop having this conversation. But we'll see. I just hope that whatever happens is relatively good, heats this up, and gets us on trajectory to be the type of pay-per-view match I think it can be, and just solidify that Saraya is a wrestler. She can wrestle, etc. Because if she comes out and says she can't wrestle, then I think that'd be pretty bad. So we shall see. Okay, so we got a couple other things. I'll save the 2 out of 3 falls match for the end, as that is our main event. We'll talk about it as our main event here, but the other 2 things pitched, and if I miss anything that was maybe it's been added last minute, please let me know in the chat here. But the only other 2 things I have that are guaranteed segments are MJF and Jon Moxley will be talking. Let me make sure. Yes, we will hear from Jon Moxley. We will hear from MJF. So, is that the same segment? Is that the Moxley after the first match promo talking about, pacing and making Max bleed and earn it and all that stuff? Or is it MJF comes out at the 8:30, so the third segment, the third quarter hour, and has that whole segment, and then just Moxley come out and they talk in the ring with each other. It feels like we're kind of at that point, and this is not the it's not the go home edition, but AEW tends to have this episode, or because we have 2 episodes left, so this episode is where you get kind of the final point of the feud, and then the next week you kind of either do a video package or a sit down thing. It's kind of the way AEW books things. Probably not the best way to book it personally, but that's the way to do it. So I think this should be a pretty big segment. It might be, MJF solo, Moxley solo, and then they meet on the Moxley solo or whatever. But there's got to be something here, and I think that, Amos, that is bad. Yeah, I hope they don't either. I'll pull your thing up here in a second. But, all this is about Max and what he says, and what we allude to is William Regal part of this. One would think. You got to think the end of that match is William Regal at ringside with those 2 wrestling, and the brass knuckles / and/or diamond ring are part of it. So do they allude to that at all to kind of frame this for the audience? I think that would be helpful to have William Regal be the one that is, more not ribbing, but just taunting MJF with the things he's done before, because it seems like MJF is more upset with William Regal than he is Jon Moxley. And is that a good way to book a match? Probably not, but can you set up him as the foil to be the cause of MJF losing at the pay-per-view, or the reason that he does turn heel is that Regal's gotten under him, and then him and Regal can be together. All that stuff. It feels like that triangle there is the most logical and realistic way to tell the story, and just kind of keeps it intriguing up until the last moment to see who does what, right? So I will pop up Amos's thing here. I hope they don't put them in a tag match together against the Firm. Yes, that would be horrible. I think thankfully we'll avoid that because the Gun Club and Ethan Page are in action tonight, so there's not enough members. We could have Morrissey and Moriarty be in a tag team, but that would be rough. So hopefully they don't book that. It's on here. Hollywood MJF is back after 1 week being gone. Everyone thought the sky was falling. Yes, having an MJF segment certainly helps. Just boost the show and whatever. But Hollywood MJF is a fun way. Hopefully he'll get the Rock and the John Cena things levied against him here in AEW. That'd be very funny after literally a 1 or 2 days on set for an independent movie being filmed. So that'd be interesting. Yeah, and then kind of what I was saying here, Amos, the big question in this feud is whether or not Regal turns. Yeah, it's what does William Regal do? How do each of them interact with William Regal? Is what I want to see. So I hope that he's involved in anything that is said tonight, not just on commentary, but is on the mic, because I think he's been leveraged a pretty good way. He's not been overexposed. He's not been underexposed. And he's really going to be the one to dictate what MJF and or Moxley does, right? So I just hope that they, I think that you guys can see that since you watch a lot of wrestling and are big fans. But if someone's flipping through and kind of watching this because they're going to watch the pay-per-view, I just hope that's laid out a little bit so they can have that in the back of their mind and, looking out for Regal as, like when you're watching a Roman Reigns match, you're always looking out to see what the Bloodline, what Heyman are doing to help him get the win. And that is established through many, many, many promos on television that frame that this is what this guy's like, and this is why he has this group, and this is why he is successful. So doing that, I think, would be important. So we'll see both of them tonight. I think that'll help tremendously to keep this as a through line. Again, I think the show will be better because it's got the structure of setting up the pay-per-view and less Ring of Honor stuff, less Jeff Jarrett, and hopefully less Jeff Jarrett. We'll see. Maybe he'll pop in and be added to some match. Who knows? But the main event that I do not think will be the main event, it might be. It's just hard to book things. I think, Tony doesn't really care about a main event. It being the most important thing, right? Being on at 8:30 or the start of the second hour is the more important spot. So I could see this getting, being at 8:45 and going till, 9:30 or something. But we've got the 2 out of 3 falls match with Sammy Guevara taking on Bryan Danielson. Curious to see where this goes. Zahn thinks that Sammy's going to win based on booking. That would be more of the WWE style, which is, again, something AEW does occasionally but doesn't lean on. So if you have Sammy win, then does that put down your mind that Danielson can't win the big one against Jericho, etc.? Does that mean Sammy is going to, usurp and take out and slay Chris Jericho in the middle of that match? All those questions are there. It makes probably more sense, especially if it's, traded back and forth. Danielson gets the first fall with a submission of some type. Sammy cheats to get the second fall, and then JAS come out and cheat to get the second one, or the third total, but the second for Sammy. I can see that being the story. I just don't think that there is. I probably wouldn't put on this match if I was the booker. So I guess, take all that into consideration as I say this, but I just don't know if there's that much upside in Sammy Guevara as there is with just committing to Danielson being a top guy. As Rin says here, Danielson's about to put everybody over, or already put over everyone. Yes, he did. So that's why I think you have him win here and you have him be the legitimate challenger to Jericho. And if you want to, I don't know, it depends. I've been saying this for 6 months now, but if there is some sort of ROH show streaming or on television Danielson or Jericho are two guys that you can base that around. And I think Jericho more wants to be Wednesday night on TNT than he does on some streaming thing. And Danielson seems like a type of guy who would go for like starting Ring of Honor back from scratch and getting it going once more. So we'll see where it goes. But I think that, that happening here, I don't know, would probably be a mistake, but I think, Danielson's got to win to look formidable. But I guess actually you can argue both sides. I don't think really either matters. Again, why I would not personally book this match unless you need it to be a time filler. I mean, it should be good action. But as Azan said here, didn't Bryan and Garcia 2 out of 3 falls a couple weeks ago? Yeah. I mean, and then they kind of stopped the trajectory on Garcia and then switched to Guevara, which it seemed like, Danny Garcia and Jericho in the main event of the next Ring of Honor pay-per-view was where we were headed. So I don't know, maybe they want that still to be, and they wanted to have a match here that made sense, but it now feels more like Sammy and Jericho is going to be the main event of the Ring of Honor match. And then you're going to have Danielson and Moxley and Claudio and Wheeler kind of have a, implosion of the BCC, especially if Regal sides with MJF or vice versa, if Regal chooses somebody else to do that with. So, that's all coming out of here. And I'm curious how long this goes. 2 or 3 falls match could be an hour. I don't know if there's a time limit on it, but do you want that to be this long? I certainly don't. I think this being about a half hour would be a good fit. And what's after it? Is it this and then the Jamie Hayter Sky Blue segment, which I don't think helps them at all, like I said. And then use your main event Kingston and Ethan Page. I don't know. So that's why I feel like there's almost got to be another match here just to kind of smooth things out. But that's kind of where I am on the show. Again, if there's anything else that I missed that is promoted at this point, please let me know. But I think, again, it should be an improved episode of Dynamite. I mean, last week, if you look at the cage match, user ratings was a bottom 5 Dynamite of all time from a ratings by people in that community standpoint. So this almost certainly has to go up. I think the rating will be down from that. And yeah, thank you, Azan. There's a lot going on. So yeah, the Elite should come back tonight. Again, the way AEW does their go-home shows, they tend to be the penultimate show before the pay-per-view, not the actual final show before the pay-per-view. So the Elite coming back tonight would make sense to set up that match with Death Triangle. That could fill some time. Them getting 10 minutes to have a promo or have a segment doing something on their comeback, I think would be good. And I'm curious to see how the crowd reacts to them. The CM Punk chance that may or may not happen, I don't think that would happen, but I'm curious to see how that would go. And yeah, that would be super newsworthy on top of a very newsworthy show. So again, I think it should be improved. On the post show tonight, Wade and I will discuss it with you or whoever calls in. And I'm sure there'll be a lot to dissect, but it should be newsworthy, and we should get a better feel for, the confirmation of the Elite and Death Triangle, and then the Britt Baker-Saraya match, which should fill out the first 9 of our 17 matches at the Full Gear pay-per-view. So, as always, I appreciate you guys joining here. You guys are the best. Thank you. Could not do this without you. And catch my report on the Torch tonight. Catch me and Wade afterwards. All things AEW right here. And tomorrow at 4:00 Eastern time, Zach and I will be here for the fireside chat, and we will talk about all things wrestling. Talk Crown Jewel stuff, Raw this week, Dynamite tonight, any news that drops from this point on. If the Elite come back, I'm sure we'll talk about that. MJF, what he's doing. So please check it out there. But till then, I will sign off, and I'll see you guys later.